Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. What you're about to hear is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The following is a word-for-word account from the federal courtroom testimony in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs, as reported by Inner City Press. In a turn no one could have predicted, Wendy Williams, the queen of controversy, the woman they tried to silence, has taken the stand. For decades, she was ridiculed, dismissed, blackballed. But now, under oath, Wendy is finally telling it all. And it's not just about Diddy, it's about an entire system built on protection, silence, and unchecked power in hip-hop and entertainment. This is about Jay-Z, about R. Kelly, about NDAs, media manipulation, and decades of buried truths. Wendy didn't just bring opinions, she brought dates, receipts, and names. What unfolded wasn't a gossip segment. It was a courtroom detonation. And what she revealed about Diddy, Jay-Z, and the tangled web they're caught in could shake the foundations of the industry. So buckle up, because Wendy Williams just turned the courtroom into her infamous purple chair. When Wendy walked into that courtroom, it didn't feel like a celebrity showing up. It felt like a resurrection, like someone who had clawed her way out of a media grave to finally speak the truth. She wasn't there for headlines. She wasn't chasing clout. She was there because for years she was sued, threatened, blacklisted, and mocked for telling stories that no one wanted to hear. And now, those very stories are part of a federal case. She sat down, adjusted the mic slowly, deliberately, and looked straight at the jury. I was never messy. I was never bitter. I was never lying. I was early. Wendy wasted no time getting to the point. Her testimony laid out years of behavior, intimidation, and cover-ups she attributed to Diddy, starting all the way back in the early 2000s. She pulled out a thick stack of papers, transcripts from old shows, emails from executives, a timeline tracking it all. He was protected, she said. Everybody knew it. You couldn't say his name on air without getting a call within the hour. She described how station managers warned her. Advertisers pulled out. Threats came in. Quiet, but clear. You're doing too much, Wendy. You're going to get hurt. She told the court about the time a girl group, Total, waited outside her building, allegedly sent by Diddy, after she said on air they were broke. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. Wendy described her career like a battlefield. Every time she spoke on Diddy's name, something collapsed. Deals, sponsors, syndication, but she kept going. You can blackball me, you can threaten me, but you can't erase me, and now I'm under oath. So I hope they're listening, because I'm not stopping until the truth is loud enough to tear their machine down. Then came the moment the courtroom held its breath. When asked about the broader culture around Diddy, Wendy didn't hesitate. She turned her focus on Jay-Z. You can't talk about Diddy without talking about the people who stood next to him while it was all happening. That includes Jay-Z. She locked eyes with the jury. You remember Foxy Brown? She was 15. Jay-Z was 27. He was everywhere with her. Wendy pulled out lyrics from Foxy's debut album, songs Jay-Z reportedly wrote. She read them aloud. Ain't no nump like the one I got. No one can satino a bianca me better. The courtroom shifted in discomfort. You tell me, Wendy said, why was a grown man writing those lyrics for a teenage girl? She continued, listing details only an insider could know. Rumors of Jay picking Foxy up from school, showering her with gifts, paying for her glam. That wasn't mentorship, that was grooming. Then she dropped what might have been the darkest revelation of all. The rumored tape. A tape said to involve Jay-Z, Foxy Brown, and Jamie Foxx. It was talked about for years. Then suddenly, it vanished. Foxy's home was broken into. The tape was gone. You think that's coincidence? Wendy paused. I don't. Shortly after she spoke about that tape on air years ago, she was fired. Her top-rated show, gone. They called me toxic. But now you see that what I asked was worth asking. When asked if she had concrete proof, Wendy didn't blink. She had emails, call logs, producers who dropped out when Jay-Z's name came up. Jay's team made the calls, she said, blacklisted people, quietly, efficiently. Then she turned back to the jury. You think I lost sponsors for being messy? Number I lost them because I was right. And they couldn't afford to let that truth spread. Next came the part Wendy Williams said no one wanted to believe. The part that earned her the labels. Liar, loudmouth, troublemaker. But in court, under oath, she didn't flinch. I was the first to say it. Those weren't parties. They were operations. She was referring to what the federal indictment now calls freak-offs, a term once dismissed as sensational, now central to the case against Diddy. Wendy said she first heard whispers about these gatherings back in the late 90s, during Bad Boy's golden era. She described a world behind closed doors, where phones were confiscated, NDAs were signed, guests were guided by candle escorts, cameras documented everything, and people were assigned to rooms. This wasn't a house party, she told the jury. It was a ritual. Wendy recalled an on-air conversation with Dee Stevens, who said Diddy invited her to one of these events and specifically requested male participation. Superhead, too, had once described Diddy's paranoia, the drug use, the strange, controlled environments. He feared she'd expose him, Wendy said, and that fear was justified. I played that interview on repeat, she testified, because the truth was too heavy to let slip through the cracks. Wendy described other guests, both men and women, who returned from those parties shaken, not entertained, not dazzled, shaken. They weren't just there to party, they were given instructions, what to wear, who to touch, what room to enter. She spoke with 3 individuals who described the use of IV bags the morning after, just to recover. The same detail now listed in the court's official filings. There were medical staff on standby, she said. This wasn't socializing, Wendy told the court. It was organized depravity. Then she presented a list, coded with pseudonyms, of those who'd given her their testimonies in private. As she read, the courtroom fell still. One by one, their stories echoed the very accounts brought by Cassie Ventura, Gene Deal, and others. And then, Wendy dropped a detail that stunned the room. The baby oil. I joked about it on air once, but it wasn't a joke. They really found over 1,000 bottles, just like I said. You know how I knew? She asked. Because people told me. And I was the only one willing to say it. She leaned back, calm, and looked directly at Diddy. All these years later, and we're finally here. Now it's not gossip. It's evidence. Then she pivoted to someone she'd long defended, Cassie Ventura. I said it back then, Wendy told the court, her eyes locked on the jury. Y'all were hypnotized by the diamonds, the videos, the red carpets, but I saw a scared girl. I saw imbalance, and I said so, on air. Wendy testified she'd tried to warn listeners as far back as 2008 about the obsessive control Diddy allegedly held over Cassie. She was 19. He was pushing 40. That's not love. That's leverage. Jets, private security, industry pull. Wendy said all of it was part of a carefully curated trap. She didn't need a boyfriend, she said. She needed a bodyguard. She reminded the courtroom of a clip she played years ago, Cassie flinching during an interview when Diddy raised his voice. People said it was nerves. I called it trauma. No one listened. The prosecution entered into evidence a timeline of Wendy's broadcasts that aligned almost perfectly with Cassie's later legal claims. I was told Diddy had access to her phones, that he'd show up at hotels, that he could get staff to unlock her door. And when I said that out loud, Wendy paused. My sponsors dropped me. She referenced a 2018 incident, allegedly the final straw for Cassie. Diddy reportedly entered her home uninvited. That wasn't the first time, Wendy added. When a mogul wants control, he doesn't ask. He makes the world rearrange itself. She then laid out the pattern. Grooming, isolation, control cloaked as luxury. He didn't just love Cassie, he owned her, and when she broke that chain, she became dangerous. Everything in that lawsuit, Wendy said. I saw the signs, I said it on the air, and now, finally, she's being heard. But at what cost? She adjusted the microphone. Her voice didn't shake, but it slowed. You don't talk about men like Diddy and walk away clean. I knew that. but I didn't know how deep it would go until it did. She recounted a moment from 2004 when she was at the height of her radio power. A record label executive warned her, "Stop talking about Puff, or else." The next week, she was pulled from her time slot. No explanation, no pretense. That was punishment, Wendy said. She'd heard from multiple sources that Diddy had made phone calls to labels, promoters, networks, all with the same message: distance yourself from Wendy. A program director later told her, "You went too far, you poked the wrong bear." She remembered the time she called girl group Total Broke on air, and they showed up outside her studio. You think that was coincidence? Number they were sent. Wendy painted the scene. Fans pressed against the studio glass, her boyfriend waiting outside, her intern panicking. That wasn't confrontation. That was a message. We can get to you. She described being shut out of BET events, losing ad deals, media credentials revoked, all of it coordinated. Diddy didn't just want to stop me. He wanted to erase me. She held up printed emails from PR firms representing Bad Boy at the time. Per client instruction, one read, "We will no longer book talent on Wendy Williams' show." "That client," she said, lifting the page, "Sean Combs." "I wasn't the first to be blackballed," she added, "but I was one of the few who stayed loud about it." She turned to the jury again. "That's how it works. You speak out, you lose everything. Your mic, your money, your name. But I didn't fold. I talked through the silence, and now, here I am." Then came one of the most controversial moments in her testimony. "We came from a very homosexual era of hip-hop," Wendy said, quoting her own past words. "That wasn't shade, that was truth, and for saying it, I was burned at the stake." In the early 2000s, she said, there was a quiet, powerful effort to protect certain stars by silencing anyone who questioned them. "I had Charlemagne on with me, and even back then, we knew what not to say if we wanted to stay on air, but I said it anyway." She referenced her 2004 memoir, The Wendy Williams Experience, filled with coded warnings and veiled jabs at figures like Diddy and Jay-Z. "People called it gossip," she said, "but now the government calls it evidence." She closed with a memory, her 2009 interview with former Bad Boy artist Mark Curry, author of Dancing with the Devil. He called Diddy the shadow that ruins people. I agreed. And that interview? Vanished from the station archives. She told the court that every time she platformed someone who spoke out, Superhead, Gene Deal, Jaguar Wright, she faced backlash, legal threats, and FCC complaints. "They tried to shut me down from every angle," Wendy said, "but I'm still here." Then Wendy said something that shifted the entire room. There was a list, not on paper, not official, but every insider knew it, the list of people you couldn't talk about. And when she broke that unspoken rule, she paid the price. Her Hot Topic segments were suddenly flagged for review. Talent reps started threatening producers. Executives pulled her aside, off the record, warning her to fall back. "You're going to mess it up, for yourself, for the station, for all of us," they said. She paused, let the weight of that sink in. But now, it's already messed up, because the truth is finally out. Her voice dropped as she continued. "This trial, it's not the beginning, it's the end of a cover-up. I've been ringing this bell for 20 years. You're just now hearing it." Wendy's tone sharpened, more focused. "And if you think this is just about Diddy, you're wrong." She locked eyes with the jury. "This is about the entire ecosystem that protected him. Names you were never supposed to hear in court. Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey." The room fell into a frozen silence. The prosecution asked her to elaborate. She didn't hesitate. "There's a list in Hollywood," she said. "Not one you'll ever see, not one you'll ever hold. But it's real. It's the list of people you do not cross. And if you do, you disappear." Wendy described the fallout after she aired segments, exposing not only Diddy's behavior, but also the silence of those with influence. She called out Tyler Perry for allegedly blackballing her after she criticized the Precious campaign, Oprah's and Perry's passion project. "My name started circulating behind closed doors," she said. "Producers, agents. Real people told me, "Wendy, they want you out. You're being called unstable, dangerous." After years of industry access, she was suddenly shut out. Red carpet invites vanished. Her name disappeared from guest lists. One exec even told her, "Oprah's people don't want you near her anymore." And then came the most haunting moment. Wendy testified that she once confided in Oprah about her own history with abuse. Oprah said she respected her, promised not to exploit that story. But soon after, Wendy's abuser appeared on Oprah's platform while Wendy herself was being erased. "That wasn't just betrayal," she said. "That was retaliation." She looked at the jury. They smiled with him, took pictures with him, shared stages, all while the rest of us were getting crushed for speaking out. Why? Because they needed him. For deals, for reach, for silence. Then Wendy revealed a smoking gun. An email accidentally forwarded to her from a crisis PR firm representing both Perry's studio and a Bad Boy affiliate. The subject line read, "Managing Optics. Wendy, Puff, Tyler." That was it, but that was enough. "This isn't about three men," she said. "It's about the machine. A machine that feeds on silence and destroys anyone who tries to lift the curtain." The courtroom was tense. Then came what prosecutors would later call a turning point. Wendy pulled out a thick folder. "This," she said, tapping it, "is a collection of NDAs and internal memos, never meant to see daylight." She clarified, "No hacks, no leaks, just friends in the industry, people who had finally had enough. They were tired of women being erased, tired of truth being labeled gossip." She read from one NDA dated 2007, name redacted, language chilling. Subject agrees not to disclose any private gatherings, recordings, or interactions with Sean Combs, his guests, or associates. Violation may result in financial penalties and public retaliation. She slammed the paper down. Public retaliation. That's how far this went. Next, an internal hotel email dated 2015. "We have prepared the presidential suite with all requested amenities, extra linens, candles, lighting, and discretion protocols. Mr. Combs's assistant will arrive for setup before guest entry." This wasn't partying, Wendy said. This was a system, planned, funded, executed, and cleaned up after. She revealed evidence of hush payments to bloggers, managers, even journalists. One email instructed a writer to ignore rumors and publish a piece on Diddy's charity work instead. Then came a photo, entered into evidence by prosecutors. Diddy, Tyler Perry, and a known crisis media fixer at a 2019 gala. Wendy looked at it and smiled. Women were paid to be silent. Others were destroyed for refusing. And yes, I was offered an NDA too. A syndicated show, a new contract, if I'd just move on. She looked at the jury. I said no, and I paid. Then came her final words on the matter. The silence they bought cost others their freedom, their peace, their truth. But now it's unraveling, one NDA at a time. As Wendy Williams reached the final stretch of her testimony, she didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She simply sat, steady, composed, with the weight of 20 years of warnings that no one wanted to hear. "You all see Diddy on trial," she said, voice calm but resonant. "But I see something much bigger. This isn't just about what he did, it's about who let him do it." She gestured toward the defense table. "You're looking at one man, but behind him stands a whole legacy, a tower built from silence, fear, NDAs, VIP parties, billion-dollar deals, and handshakes that sealed more than contracts. They sealed mouths." Then she turned, directly addressing the jury. Her gaze didn't waver. Every time someone tried to speak, that tower crushed them. She reminded them, yes, Diddy was the one facing charges, but others, Jay-Z, Tyler Perry, Oprah, the record labels, the publicists, had all been complicit in their silence. Some had even witnessed it. They shook his hand, they cashed his checks, and they made sure the ones who asked questions were escorted quietly out of the room. And when she delivered her final words, Her voice returned to the one millions had known from radio. Fierce, unfiltered, unapologetic. They called me bitter. They called me crazy. But I was right. She paused. And I'd rather be right in hell than silent in heaven. Then, slowly, she looked over at Diddy, still expressionless. You thought I was gone. You thought your power was enough to bury me? But here you are, and here I am. The truth finally caught up to you. And I hope it's loud. She stood, ready to leave, but turned one final time toward the gallery. This trial isn't the end. It's the start. The start of people naming names, of cracks forming in those walls, and one day, the whole tower falling down. And just like that, Wendy walked out, leaving the courtroom in a silence that said more than words ever could.